So let's add some blood. Yes, blood. Let's open this up. Okay, I just have some blood from whatever project. And let's see how many are there here. We have 4x4. 4x4. And I'm just going to assign them on the bottom. I think on the bottom it should work fine with the sprites we have. Let's check our player. I'm going to duplicate this layer first of all, and let's drop one blood above. Let's say 2. Yeah, I think here if we place them underneath the player, so basically all the enemies as well, it should look fine when attacking them. Now the question is, where do we assign them? And how do we make them so they play nice? So I think I'm just going to, I like them being down on the ground. So delete that and let's make the particles or the prefabs. So let's call this blood effects. And underneath, let's create sprite renderer. Okay, we want a dynamic sort order, of course. The sprite renderer will be above, and I think, okay, I'm going to cheat it a bit, and I'm going to use for origin my own transform and move it below slightly. Okay, then we are free to change. We can animate this basically. We could be using a mechanism, or we could create our own solution actually, because it's just 5 frames of it. So I don't want to be going through all of that. So let's go and write method and where's my script? Simple sprite animator. So we make a list of sprites and we want an update rate. I'll just do 0.1. We'll see if we need more. Then we'll do update. So we need an index. Okay. Then we're going to do float delta time to delta time, and we also want an internal update rate, or just rate. So if rate is higher than update rate, delta plus what rate plus delta. So then we're going to be updating. Otherwise, or let's say if rate is lower than update rate, return. Okay, if return. Otherwise, do index plus plus if index is higher than the update in the sprites dot length -1, index sprites dot length -1. Then we also need a sprite renderer. Sprite renderer dot sprite equals sprites index, and then rate will be 0. I think that will do it. And then now if we want to make this loop, for example, public bool loop, and that will be, if not looping, I'm actually just going to do this, and if you don't want to loop, then you can simply disable this, or you can close it, or you can add an events, the event on end. Okay, but if you want to be looping, then index can be index +1 and use a modulo modifier sprites.length if you want this to be looping. Okay, so I think that should be enough. You can also make an event for when the loop starts again, if you like it. But I don't really need it right now. Simple sprite animator. Let's assign the sprite animator. Let's assign all our sprites for this. I think there's a couple in here, so we're just going to use this for now. Onto our sprites, update rate, and on end we can simply close this object, so we can not close this object, let's say we can enable close this object, and we can also change the layer to go to the shadows. So let's see, can we do it from here, or we have to use a utility method? Yeah, we can do it by sorting layer name, and I'm just going to add shadows. Okay, so you saw how that it didn't change the sorting name apparently. Sorting layer name, yeah, they didn't change that, so let's make a helper method for that. So we'll do public void set sorting layer string name, so then sprite renderer sorting layer name. It does have a set. Okay, we'll see. I think this just accesses the public variable, that's why. That sorting layer shadow. Oh, maybe it was because it's shadow. Anyway, it should work. Yeah, it did work. Okay, so there we go. We also have shadows. Not shadows, we have blood effects and stuff like that, and I like the visceral nature of them, so I'm just going to keep them there. So we can create a few different particles from all the blood we have. Well, I actually have 2 or 3 of those. So every time we hit, we're going to be instantiating this onto the player. One thing that we have to think is if we parent it on the same position, for example, as our layer, okay, it's the same all across, so that makes things easier. Is that, does it make, yeah, it's not the same, I guess. So let's do reset. Okay, so that's blood effects, that's the renderer. Okay, and assuming we are on top, for example, it's over here. I don't think we should be showing it here. I think somewhere like this and like this, it's much better. So I'm parenting and moving it as a child object, which means I actually going to move this a few pixels up, and on the dynamic sort order, I'm going to use this object, the base object. Okay, so I now have my prefab. Now we should create an object pooler, to be honest. And okay, so let's go and do that then. Let's go over here and let's create new subscript. Let's call this object pooler. And okay, let's open up our object pooler. Now we're going to make a dynamic object pooler, as always. Okay, then we're going to, of course, a public static object pooler singleton. Going to do a get set with a static object pooler. Okay, and if singleton equals null, then game object geo instantiate resources dot load object pooler as game object, and then get component object pooler. Okay, then we want a parent transform parent object, which we also want to be accessing it from an internal method, parent object. So we do a get parent object, we'll do a return parent object, and if parent object equals null, if parent object equals null, then parent object equals new game object parent pool to transform. Okay, then we need a serializable class, system.serializable public class object pool, public string ID, public game object prefab, public integer budget, then public game object get prefab or get object. We need to keep track of how many we have created. So game object created objects. So if created objects dot count is less than our budget, then we simply just instantiate new ones. Game object, so game object dot instantiate prefab. Okay, then created objects dot add game object, return game object, else we'll be using the index. So pull index, pull index plus 1. Create the objects dot count. Return created objects pull index. Okay, now the only thing that we need to be taking into account is that if when we're changing scenes, we could have been destroying these objects. So if there is any case that a created object pull index that we have is null, then we basically want to create the game object as well. So we'll do the same thing, but do it. Oops. Oh, come on. We do it like this. Okay, so here we need object pool, object pools, and on start or on awake or whatever, we are also going to create a new dictionary with an object pool dictionary. Then for each item in object pools, pool dictionary dot add item dot id and the item. And we also want to be doing public game object get object string id. Then we do pool dictionary dot try and get value id out object pool result, then return result dot get object. And there we go, we have our object pooler. One thing we need to be doing, however, first is creating the prefab for this object pooler. Okay, and there we go, we have our prefab. So let's call this blood effects, and then the prefab will assign it from here. Okay, budget, let's say 30, because why not? So we actually need to be doing this as a prefab, and this one we should make it a normal prefab. Yeah, create folder prefab. Let's call this VFX. Blood effects. Okay, so let's delete these two. And resources object pooler. Here we want to assign. Oops. Here we want to assign the object prefab. Okay, so on each attack now that we have, we can basically assign, we can basically tell it to assign a VFX on attack. So inside the action data, we have all of these things. So we can do, okay, just keep the damage deterministic. Okay, let's say public bool, assign VFX, public string, target VFX. Okay, then first of all, on the object pooler, let's do a check. Actually, no, we won't do it in the object pooler. So let's go to the unit controller then. Unit controller, and then on hit is dead and all that. We do have a hit particle, I guess. But why do we use this? And where do we use it? Anyway, we won't need this now. So we can say yeah, but we could be attacking them, but we might not. Yeah, we can be attacking them, but not all of them will be spawning. Yeah, not all of them will be spawning blood. So you know what? Let's go over here and say on action data. I'm going to say on the hill. Okay, I'm going to say public string hit or get hit VFX. We can always be putting the VFX right onto the hit animations, by the way, but I think for this to work as well, doesn't matter. So when on hit, we could just check if first of all is null or empty, and I'm only going to do this with a string check, just because in the prototype we're not going to be, yeah, we're going to be missing a few objects here and there. So I'm just going to be putting it, doing the check so we avoid some errors. Then object pooler, get object, get hit VFX. Maybe it makes more sense to have this in here actually. Okay, so let's do it like that, and if VFX is not null, then basically going to do all of this as well, I guess. Okay, then we don't instantiate anymore. We already have the game object, so we do it like so. Now you will notice a set active down here. So what I will do is, inside the game object, when you're getting back the get object, you're going to be getting it back in closed form. So geo set active false, and created objects pool index set active false as well. So you have to be responsible for enabling it again. Now on enable for the simple sprite animator, we're going to be setting up the index to 0, rate back to 0, and then sprite renderer sprite renderer dot sprite equals sprites 0. Okay, And we're simply going to remove the online, and then we should be changing the sorting layer as well. So let's say public string starting layer. We can either do it here, or we can basically add a new event on start. So we use the same methods. Okay, so now let's go and tailor a bit our VFX. Blade VFX, open that up, renderer. Then in here we could say we don't want this anymore, and on start we want again simple sprite animator, set sorting layer to default. Okay, so on the sources I'm just going to call this blood VFX. Then on all players, on everyone pretty much, let's see, here controller, let's call this blood VFX. And on mine as well. Okay, let's see the error. Object puller 17. Object puller 17, I think, is because we're calling the singleton from here, where that awake runs before you do before awake. Yeah, so that never updates this. So let's rename this to public void init, and we'll be doing parent object dot init, or just init, I guess. Not parent object, we want the singleton. Where's the singleton? So down here. Okay, that should fix this. Okay, didn't. So 17. That means there's nothing in the full dictionary. Why though? Is object puller already in? No, it isn't. So let's see. Singleton for everything that is inside the object pools. Full dictionary item.id item. Okay, let's do a step by step. I'm actually going to do a step by step on the singleton. And yeah, it never calls the singleton actually. That's weird. Or did it? What? That's weird. Okay, we don't care about that one. Okay, let's stop it. And let's see again what we do on the unit controller. We're checking singleton get object. Okay, let's do this again. Are we locked? Okay. Okay, so singleton is null. You're going in, you init, you have the blood VFX. Okay, then you go outside, singleton. Why are we calling 2 times together? Maybe I hit more than one guy. What's happening here? What's happening? Yeah, instantiate object pooler. That's actually weird. If singleton is null. Okay, pull dictionary. We have blood VFX. Okay, blood effects instead of VFX. Okay, then we need another check. And so return null. Let's say debug.log error. No ID in pool of okay, my bad. Then let's change this to X. Okay, then on my player as well, change this to FX, and that should do it. And that's pretty cool. We're changing that's actually really nice. We're changing the saturation because the lights are not affecting that layer, I believe. So that's global. I think it's that light, the global light. Yeah, that works. That's actually really cool. Now let's spice this up a bit, and let's spice up our actual VFX. So for example, I'll say on enable random. What's that? On enable random. So namespace. So we'll use objects and then void on enable random dot range between 0 and objects dot length. Okay, then for each in objects, I'm going to disable all else because we're using it inside an object pooler. So you have to think of the previous state you were in as well. Okay, so let's open up our VFX and I'm going to say on enable random, and I'm going to say blood 1, blood 2. Okay, assign this over here, and then for blood 2 let's go and change and use the other sprites. So this one, 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 and this one. Okay, so exactly the same thing that's going to be happening, but now you can start with those disabled, but it's just going to randomize the effects. Of course, if you have more effects, you can add those as well, or you can add one specific one. So we can actually, use only, oh yeah, one thing we forgot on the object pooler is we should be parenting anything that we instantiate. We should parent it underneath. The parent should be underneath the parent object. Okay, transform parent parent equals parent object. Okay, just so that our scene is staying clean. And the other thing that we can do is basically, because not all attacks are going to be adding the VFX, the damage VFX, for example, like if something just push you back, like the heavy, you might not want to play the, you might not want to play the VFX. So we'll do a flag then if you're going to spawn the animations or not. So on the action data, we'll do, oops, what? We'll do public bool spawn VFX. So if action data dot spawn VFX, then do the check over here. Otherwise, if you're doing a simple knockback, you don't want to do that. So player actions, action data on jump. Let's see, up attack. Let's say you don't want to spawn VFX, but on the normal attacks, we're going to spawn the VFX. Jump attack, we don't want either. Well, maybe we spawn for the one attack, and then on the enemy actions, for one attack, they can spawn. Doesn't matter. Well, this guy definitely doesn't do damage. But yeah. And I don't, oh yeah, they're dead. So let's see one more thing. I don't know why these guys didn't attack. Oh, they didn't attack because they are using a different attack from the attack on close AI. Yeah, they are using this one. I'll just stick on VFX and they will attack now. Okay, so that's one way to have VFX and both hook it up onto the players. So if I was hitting something else, they could be using their own attacks, which is nice. Man, that's actually really cool, to be honest. Awesome. So, okay, let's finish this part here. And on the next one, I think we are ready to basically just building levels, to be honest. And because everything is just now depends on animations and maybe some different AI logic. We can also have some grapple attacks, and so you can pick up bodies or whatnot. But we'll see how we do this. We'll worry about that a bit later. I think right now most important is to just get the player. Yeah, to just do the player, you know. So that's it for now. As always, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, and if you like to see more stuff, more videos, more of everything, of course, continue supporting me so we can do all this and even more cool things. I'll see you next time.